hauntings, cryptids, the unknown. Welcome to Mystic Moon Cafe Radio. Mystic Moon Cafe, here we are. There you are.
Going, yep.
And anyway, so they're dealing with the massive coronavirus ordeal going on out that way. June is having 12-hour days, and Jake has some sort of a presentation on the virus. So I said, okay, I got it. And here we are. It was a beautiful day today, sunny, about 55 degrees or so here in Kansas City. Jerry, how did you do?
Today it was up in the mid 50s here today. It's supposed to be in the 70s by this weekend.
Oh, fantastic. Yay.
So yeah, we're gonna enjoy that weather.
Oh, absolutely, as we need to all the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, next week we will be hosting the Oregon Ghost Conference people. Kristen Gray. Okay, I forget which the others are because I don't know them that well, but it will be a great show. We'll talk about the Oregon Ghost Conference in Seaside, Oregon, which is, I think it's just outside Portland. It should be fun. Everybody should have a good time for that. And we've got that going. And let's see, the following week. Yeah, I don't have my calendar in front of me. It's not going to work. Next Tuesday, I will be on Haunted Voices Radio. They want to interview Mystic Moon Cafe, and it'll probably get tacked onto me. So if you're really, really bored, or whatever, you can come by and listen to Todd go on about whatever he goes on about, and we'll talk paranormal stuff, creepy, mystical, unknown things. It'll be a lot of fun. We always have a lot of fun on his shows. And let's see what else is happening. I'm not sure. I can go ahead and read tonight we'll be talking with Harvey Althaus. He is an intuitive and a remote viewer. He's been on 3 different TV series that I've seen. Haunted on Netflix, their new one. His episode is Children of the Well. And let's see, where to go. Okay. I will pull up his bio and start reading it, and then we'll give it a few. Well, I don't know. Anybody out there want to talk about anything first? Or now Jerry and her circle, which I think I'm kind of a part of at this point, her circle of witches, will be on, is it the 29th? I believe it's the 29th of this month. We'll be talking, basically then and now, how witchcraft differentiates between way back in the when and these days. I believe what they did to recognize each other so that the whole village didn't know and they got stoned to death or burned or whatever.
Exactly.
And some other traditions. And let's see, were there tarot readings and perhaps some of the interesting ones they've done over time?
Right. I think that is something that Jen and Deb are going to talk about. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I've been thinking a little bit about doing that myself. Like on the show, just pull a card real quick just for the fun of it. But
I think you should.
I was listening to Jennifer and Maxwell's show Odd Tonic last night, and it was the recording because I had missed what went on live. Jennifer was pulling cards, and she pulled 3. Okay, and I said, okay, I like number 3. And okay, that came up as the sun. Well, anybody who listens very often knows that I am a Leo and definitely a sun child. And it just kind of went on fun like that. We had a lot of fun on it. But
It was a good show.
yeah, But let's see. Did you catch them live, Jerry?
I did.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, most of it.
Okay.
Me, I come in and out, and
Yes.
I get caught up doing something else, and then I look at the clock and go, "Oh my gosh!" and,
Right.
and run in and turn everything on. So, yeah, but I got most of it. Yeah, it was a good show.
Okay. Good.
I enjoyed it.
Glad. I'm very glad you liked it. I'm going to go ahead and add Harvey to the call because he just messaged and said he's ready when we are.
Perfect.
And we can kind of introduce him a little bit. Yeah, there we go. We can introduce him a little bit and bring him on as soon as he comes on. Let's see. All right. Well, tonight we've got Harvey Althaus. He's an intuitive remote viewer and a TV personality. Harvey has over 50 years of experience with the paranormal and over 30 years as a paranormal investigator and sensitive. He has appeared on 2 National Paranormal TV shows, My Ghost Story and A Haunting, and most recently on Netflix original series Haunted, Season 1, Episode 3, Children of the Well. Harvey uses his intuitive, sensitive, remote viewing gifts most often by doing readings for individuals. You can find his services at, go to Facebook and type in Harvey Althaus 54. It lists his services and everything there. So let's see, Harvey on being a sensitive. Being a sensitive. As a sensitive, it can be a burden at times, but I've learned to live with my abilities by controlling them. I taught myself decades ago how to turn them on and off. People always ask me how I do what I do, and my response, I practice, practice, practice. The more you use it, the more accurate you become. The biggest block to progress is self-doubt. Oh, yeah, definitely. Many people second-guess the information that comes to them and over-filter it. By the time they are ready to share the info, it has become overly convoluted and makes no sense. I always say what comes to me, no matter what it is, especially if it means absolutely nothing to me, but 9 out of 10 times will mean everything to the person I'm reading. All right, then, without further ado, Harvey, are you here?
I'm here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Glad to see you there. Thanks for doing the show tonight.
Yeah, that is no problem. I'm just, really humbled that you asked me to do this.
No, don't even be humble about it. I know better. You're that good.
Well, I don't know about that good, but I try to do my best when when I can. So
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And you do well at it. Probably.
Well, I mean, I've been told that. I mean, I will admit that sometimes it even impresses my wife, and she's my absolute, she knows that I help people. She kind of draws a line at the ghost hunting part of it, but she knows that I help people with readings and being a sensitive. But there's been some times when she's actually been with me and she's actually witnessed, real time right then and there, me doing something for somebody just randomly out of the blue. And that person, I mean, just to see her face when she hears the person say that, oh my God, that's 100% accurate. And then they're like, were we just talking about that? How did you get that information?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a couple things that I found out, well, I can do many things. It's not just remote viewing. It's not just being an intuitive. It's, I'm very good at medical stuff. I found that out when I was really young. All I ever had to do, I remember as a kid, I would just end up touching somebody, and I knew if they were sick, if they were hurting, and if they were sick, I knew that if it was terminal or if just by touching them. You know, so I mean, I just case in point, my father, although he had been a heavy smoker, he's from that time period. I'm 50,
Oh, yeah.
almost 60 years old, so my dad was one of those smokers back in the day. When everybody was doing it. But anyways,
And it was healthy
he had,
for you, right? Yeah.
well, according to the Surgeon General at one time,
Yep.
that sold millions. Anyways, he unfortunately ended up succumbing to its influences, and half of his family. But anyways, I had a dream. I don't know. I was probably in my maybe mid to late 20s, and I had a dreaming about my dad, and it was weird because I stepped into my boyhood home, on the farm there in Iowa, and in the kitchen, my dad's standing behind this old antique-looking fluoroscope, one of the first X-ray machines.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Come in here," and he says, I can see his rib cage and his spine and part of the upper part of his hips, and he goes, "What's that up there?" And he's pointing to the left side of his lung, in the upper part. Excuse me. And I said, "Oh, Dad, that looks like a massive, cancer tumor. You have lung cancer." Well,
Oh boy.
Excuse me. Not only did I see it, I saw how it was lying and how big it was.
Oh
and
my. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I was able to, see in depth, even further. I even saw the procedure that they're going to have to do to remove it from him. So
Oh, wow.
of course the very next day, I woke up, I called home and I'm panicking. And now in 1987, this is 6 years before I had this dream. In 1987, my father had a heart attack. That almost took his life, but he hung in there. And I didn't get anything from that, and every time he'd ever had a checkup, the doctors would say, "Oh, Joe," as a doctor smoking along with him in the same room, he says, "Oh, you got a little bit of tar buildup in your lung. You're good to go,"
Mm-hmm.
So, but then I was panicked, when I had 6 years later, I had this dream, and I, told my stepmom, and she says, "Well, he's been complaining of some weird chest pains, but, it's been to the doctors." I said, "But why don't you take him to an actual person that knows what the hell they're doing?" I said, "Go take him in to see somebody, go, somebody." So he did, and sure enough, they put him on an X-ray machine, and there was a tumor. It was the size of his fist, and it was laying at it was like, if this isn't 90 degrees, it was like this in his upper left lung, and it just totally took the entirety of the upper left lung. And
That
and
sounds really
weird,
bad.
well, yeah, it was really bad, and it was stage 3.5, more or less. Like, if there was a 3, I know there's only 1 to 4, but it hadn't quite turned to 4 yet. But the doctor said that where it was located, he says, if you're going to get lung cancer, that's exactly where you want it to be, in that part of your lung, because that's easy to remove. So they removed it, and then successfully. And it was weird because I knew he was going to have a surgery. Now I'm out here in California, in the Bay Area, and one morning I woke up and I felt this burning sensation from just below my my rib cage, where my sternum is, all the way around my left side to the middle of my back.
Oh.
And I got in the bathroom and I'm looking, I'm going, "What the heck?" And there was this welt. It was a line, it was a red line welt that ran from underneath my rib cage all the way around my back. And I said, "What the heck did I do? Did I cut myself on a broken spring on my bed as I turned over?" Well,
Yeah.
my bed didn't have springs in it. So, so I'm going, how can I perfectly linearly, half a circle, in an exact straight line? How can I do that? So I didn't know what it was. And, that's how they cut my father open. And I had that for 2 weeks until he started feeling better.
Oh my. Mm-hmm.
I know. Talk about synchronicity. Talk about having what do they call that?
It's not sympathetic. Is it sympathetic?
Well, I
Problems
think it is, but there's some. It's a little bit more because, sympathetic. Having a sympathetic pain is one thing, but actually manifesting,
Right. Yeah.
an actual thing. That's I don't know what that's called. To this day, I don't know what it's called. But anyways, it happened, and shortly after that, I was able to. I mean, I've always been able to know when people, when they had headaches, when people have been having backaches, when people are in a bad mood, and that's empathic,
Right.
but it's a specialized, empathy, and it's to where I can actually physically feel their pains. I know where they are. And I didn't know this, what it was called, but even as a young person, when I was in my teens, I was able to effectively take people's pain away from them, especially headaches, shoulder aches, nervous tension, all that stuff. And I would just, look like I was doing Reiki, but I wouldn't touch them. I would just naturally and I could feel what was going on. People having a bone out of place, a disc, I could feel it. And I tell them what to tell their doctors, and sure enough, there's something there. People will have, I get drawn towards their thyroid. Sure enough, they didn't know that they were, very, they had a very underactive, thyroid, and it was caused because they had a low iodine, count in their body, part of the metabolism. Because that's a lot of people don't know that iodine is what runs and maintains a thyroid to keep it at equilibrium. So as you remember, I'm just assuming, remember when they used to have iodine infused salt, iodine infused, like Wonder Bread, iodine, heavy fortified, iron and iodine. Well, they took all that stuff out. And when you did that, and over a course of a few generations, there's a lot of people with underdeveloped thyroids, or that they have rampant thyroid problems. And it's because we lack iodine. And some of the people who I express to them, I always tell people, I say, look, and it's through talking with them, when I'm connected with them is when I pick things up, and it's like from numbness in the hands, to the toes, to ulcerations, to, you name it, I get it, and it's not even part of the conversation. It's just when I'm locked in with somebody, that's when I start picking that up. And I'm going to share a story with you. This is actually happened. Let's see. I met this wonderful lady. Let's see. It would have been, I met her 8 years ago, but she lived for about another 5 years after I met her. And anyways, I was at the USS Hornet. I was a guest speaker there at one of their paranormal conferences. And this lady came up to my booth, and she came out really bubbly. She was very chic as far as what she was wearing, and she came up to me, and she had been waiting, and she kept, checking her name to see where she was in the rotation, for the reading. And finally her reading came. And I said, boy, you've been really, I've never seen anybody worry about if they're going to get to see me, And she says, well, this reading's not for me. It's not about, I don't want to, it's just, it's about my family. And right then I said, oh, you have metastasized cancer. You have mesothelioma. And she just about passed out when I told her that.
Oh boy.
And that's exactly what she has. And, and I said, did you work in some kind of construction? She says, well, I'm a team leader for a demolition company, So, and I said, they dealt with a lot of asbestos. She says, yep. And she says, we were dealing with it before the federal government said that we shouldn't be dealing with it without having protective, stuff on. And their company wouldn't let them wear protective gear, even after they found out what it was. So anyways, she came up to me, and she wanted to know, how her family is going to fare once she was gone. And she says, the thing is, I don't feel sick. I felt sick, but I feel great. I've been feeling super great, like energized. And I said, well, there's a reason. I said, how long ago was it you were at the oncologist? Just last week. I said, did he give you some kind of a CAT scan? And he was kind of perplexed by it. And he thought that maybe it was fudged and he was going to have to reschedule for another one next week. She says, oh my God, how do you know that? I said, because what he saw is that your tumor's in remission. And
interesting. Okay.
So the very next week, this is, later on, she called, oh my God, you're all right. It's in remission. And not only, I even told her, I said it shrank like, almost 2 inches. Because it was the size of a golf, not a golf ball, but like a softball, in her right lung, and it diminished. They said between 1.5 and 2 inches.
Oh my word! Yeah,
so it went from her wanting to know how her family was going to fare, and if everything was going to be okay. And I told her, I said, you're going to be around. I said, you're going nowhere anytime soon. I said, 2 things are going to happen. One is you are absolutely going to be around to spearhead this class action lawsuit against your own company. And she says, oh my God, how do you know this stuff? Because, she had been, talking with a lawyer and, they've been bringing other, victims and other, family surviving members who lost loved ones from that same business over the years. And I says, and you will live to see it through. I said, I can't see or feel anything beyond that. I said, but it's going to be up to you. She says, well, I guess this is what I'll die of. And I says, well, I usually don't tell anybody that because that's not my place. It's like me handing somebody a ticking time bomb. Say, here, go play, have fun.
Yeah.
So I usually don't do that, but I felt very strongly, and she wanted to know, she said, I hold you harmless. And she made air quotations in the air. She says, I know you do this for entertainment value, so go ahead. Wow me.
Okie dokie then.
So I said, okay. I said, well, usually it's not my place. And I said, I have to tell you, most of the time I feel very awkward and I'll change the subject. Or I'll say the reading's done. But I said, but for you, Diane, you have about 6.5 years. And it will spread. And it will go to bone cancer. So 6.5 years later, actually 5 years after I had told her, they won the lawsuit, and the company absolutely automatically appealed it, because it was like several hundreds of millions of dollars, that they were going to have to pay out. But anyways, she, in the long run, her family is going to, and they'll settle out of court, but her family will be taken care of. And then she was an avid ghost hunter. Oh my goodness. Everywhere I was a guest speaker at, she was there. She would stand right up. She was my biggest cheerleader.
Awesome.
Yeah. And at one time I said, gee, Diane, I said, look, I gave you these pictures and all this stuff, and, I got nothing else to give you. She says, you gave me extra time. Just like that, she says, you gave me extra time. I said, no, I didn't give you extra time. You gave yourself extra time. She says, but I needed permission to.
Okay.
And I said, okay, all right. And I'm looking around like, okay, let's keep that on the down low between you and me, okay? So anyways, so that was very, then her funeral came, and that was very sad, but it was very pleasant. And it was, her family, was very appreciative and very, happy that, she had come to know me, and, we became friends. And, whether we were, at a conference, she's my cheerleader, or we'd be at a local, investigation someplace, she was right there, and she was always bringing people to me. Harvey, this lady needs, she is in desperate need of reading. I can feel it. And one thing that, she said, to be honest, she says, I never felt like I had any kind of sensitivity, until I got cancer. And I says, well, unfortunately, that's how it usually happens. Something traumatic happens in their life, and it just opens whatever that's in our brain, that's in our mind, that controls those abilities. And it turns it on like full blast, or just turns it on, but it's trickling out, And hers was like half on, because she started having dreams and memories of people she had totally forgotten about, and she started doing this. Oh my God, I'm going to hear from so and so in 5 minutes, and boom, her phone rings, and there's so and so.
Mhm.
You know, she became so adept at doing it. You know, I thought that she was pranking me at a couple times, but no, it was what manifested in her, in her last little bit on Earth. And then one of the last things that, when she was in her hospital, she called me a couple times, to say goodbye, and she thanked me, and when that night I got the call, and she said, well, I'm in the hospital again, and this time I probably won't make it out. She says, but she said, and I just had to think about it for a second, and it made me cry. And she says, can I be one of your spirit guides on the other side, when I pass?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to approach a request like that? And I just,
Right. Yeah.
I remember my ears started turning really hot, and just, here I am, I'm drinking water, and that's about how much I cried. And then she died, the next, a couple of days later, because she slipped into a, mercifully, people, when they, slide into that coma, and that's about it. But it's just weird, because, as long as I've been doing this, I was about 4 years old, when my first earliest memories of this stuff, and not that I'm not the kid from The Sixth Sense, okay?
Right. Okay.
I'm not that. The only actual ghost, if you want to call it that, I just thought it was my mom. And people who have seen my my episode, it's episode number 4. It's Children of the Well.
Oh, my mistake. I think I've been saying it was 3. I apologize.
Yeah. And people go, I don't see it on here. Well, there's one on 4, but she said 3. Yeah.
All right, everybody. I was wrong again.
Well, I'm not blaming you, but so I got this call from Netflix, and first I thought somebody's pranking me. Sure, yeah, Netflix is gonna call me.
Right.
Well, the reason they called me is because of what I do, and there was a couple of people that they had contacted first, and they said, well, they don't have a story, but they know somebody who does. They said it's gonna, fits right up your alley. So, it all started with the casting person, and I want to dispel some things here. When people get called to be on a show, I'm not an actor. I'm a preschool teacher. That's my day job, and the first part of the process is when somebody wants to do a show, they have a casting director, because they're trying to cast people, into these interviews, right? And they want people who are good interviews, people who are, they got a good story, and the guy said, it's only take maybe 10, 15 minutes. We're on Skype, just like we are right now. And next thing you know, 3 hours passed, 3 hours. And I can't even tell you how many pens he burned through. He's writing everything I say down here. Oh my God, this is gold. Oh my God. He just over and over and over. And then he looks up and he goes, you need to speak to the associate producer. And I don't mean the AP that comes pick you up at the airport. I mean the actual, the next guy down from the actual executive person, producer. And he says, she's going to want to hear this. And I said, she'll only take 15 minutes of your time. Like, okay. Well, what you going to call tomorrow? So he says, I gave her your telephone number. Is that okay? So, okay. So I'm getting ready to go to bed, and 10 minutes later, the phone rang. And I'm looking.
Hello.
I'm going, who's that? Anyway, he says, oh, hi, this is so-and-so. And I'm with Netflix. And I'm like, wait a minute. He said, you're going to call tomorrow. He said, oh, no, I read his notes. I had to talk to you now. And this is how Hollywood works. You're on their time. Just because they caffeinate all day long, and they only sleep maybe 2 minutes a night.
Right.
You know.
Pretty high energy.
So,
Yep.
yeah. So I talked to her, and it ended up being a little over 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's just like, "Oh my God, you got to talk to the director." She says, "Do you have time tonight?" I said, "No, I got to go to bed." But I said, "But if you're still interested, I'll be available tomorrow." She said, "Fine."
Mm-hmm.
Hung up the phone. So I laid there half the night expecting the phone to call.
Right.
So the next day comes and goes, and I'm at work. We're not supposed to have our phones on us. It's in my pocket, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's them!" There's nobody.
Right.
Just telemarketers. And one time it was my boss saying, "Why do you have your phone?"
Hey, it's
So,
one of those days.
but,
Yeah.
but they understood the reason why, and they said, "Oh yeah, you definitely got to take that." So, anyways, I didn't hear anything. So I figured, okay, well that's nothing. I blew my chance. Whatever. I've heard this a million times. Someone wants to make my story. Okay, I've heard it a million times. So I'm at my son's soccer practice, and I'm talking to one of my buddies there, one of the dads. Phone rings, and it's from the area code. They said he'd be calling from, and like, I'm gonna get this. So he goes, "Hello, this is so and so, director of the new Netflix." And I went, "Oh my God!" I said, "I thought you were supposed to call. I was expecting you to call last night." He goes, "Oh no, I was in bed." I said, "Geez, I would have liked to have known that because I really thought you were going to call." He says, "Yeah." He says, "I need my sleep." So, anyways, he said, "Sorry, it was so late because he's in meetings all day long, and they're getting the show ready and."
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, so he said, "I'll take maybe an hour of your time." We talked for 4 hours, and right then and there, he said, "Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and greenlight this show. We're going to do this."
Woohoo!
And I says, "What does that mean?" He says, "Yeah, we're going to be doing your story." And he said, I'll have some people call you in the next few days." And I says, "Well, when?" He says, "Well, give us about a week or two because they have to do treatment and all that stuff and get everything because they're still they're just getting people lined up for the first season."
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, it's like I have my own handlers, and they kept calling me the talent. I'm like, I'm not. I'm just sharing a story. I'm not an act. What? Why? I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like people fawning all over me. I really don't. And anyways, so a long process. Ended up doing it, and they flew us down into Southern California. Had my my oldest sister, my second youngest sister. I have 6 sisters, no brothers. I'm the third
my!
oldest. I know.
Okay.
1 bathroom in the house. That was a pain. Anyway,
Yes.
Yeah. Now you understand why I am the way I am, because I'd have to use my abilities to know who was heading for the bathroom, so I could cut them off.
There you go.
Yeah. Only I wish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, anyways, the place that we did it at this local house that had been, was a mansion built, and a farming person made their money by, growing food. And the house that we were at was, I looked at it going, "Geez, this looks like this should be like on Dark Shadows or something, from the 1960s soap opera." And as I got out of the van, I'm looking up in the left upper window of the second floor, and I saw this lady. I knew they were going to do reenactments of her stories, but I said, "Oh, that's kind of strange. They're going to do that all in one place." I said, "Well, they're trying to save money. I get it,
Sure. Yeah.
But I didn't say anything. And then my oldest sister, and she doesn't consider herself, sensitive at all, except maybe to, she's good at criticizing other people's quilts, that they make.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she got out of the van, and I was going to go around to help her out because, she's a little slow, physically, but she jumped out and she's looking at it. She goes, "Oh my God, this looks like blah, blah house back in Iowa." And she goes, "Oh," she says, "Hey, Harv, do you see that lady up there? Are they reenacting?" And I looked at her. I said, "You saw her too?" And then our driver goes, "What actors? What reenactment? What are you talking about?" My sister
Oh
said,
boy.
"It's a lady up there, and she looks like she's like in an old time morning dress. You know, she's got the white hair and had a little bun on top." That's how clear it was to both of us. I mean, I saw her.
Wow.
You know, and my sister saw her peeking through the windows, and he went running into the house because there's nobody. I mean, although there's people staying there, you know, but you know, during the shoot, but there's nobody up there at that time because they were in the process of filming other stories that were there ahead of me. You know, just the interview part, and I went, "Oh my God!" So he went and told the assistant director, and they called for a cut, and they listened. And we hear these footsteps up there, real small, tiny, going up and down the hall. And the director goes, "Oh my effing, somebody run up there and get that person." Well, there was nobody up there. But they did smell what smelled like rose water perfume.
Okay. A very common older perfume.
Yeah, right. Now, mind you, this house has been, you know, is rented out for several productions. You know, and the owner was there. And, you know, and she had heard that me and my sister saw somebody. She came up to me and she says, "Oh, you saw her too?" And I says, "Well, I mean, are they doing reenactings? I mean, she looks really authentic." And she says, "Oh, that's Martha." And I said, "Oh," I said, do you know the actress?" She says, No. She says, she was the first lady. Her husband built this house back in 1882.
Oh, hello, validation.
It was weird. It was weird. Oh, she had an office there, but I was sitting in an old off-wing pantry of the kitchen. That's where they put us. It was their green room. And there was paper laying around, and I always carry pencils with me because I like to draw. So I started sketching what I saw. And anyways, we had to do makeup and hair and wardrobe and all that stuff. You know, we had to bring our own stuff, but they helped us. So as I'm sitting in the chair, I'm showing one of the makeup artists, you know, she goes, "Oh," she says, "that's really good." She says, "Wow." And so she's showing her friend, and at that exact moment, the owner walked by and she says, "Let me see." And she goes, "Were you in my office?" I said, "No." I said, "Why?" And they're like, "No, he's been in here. He hasn't, we got him in the green room right into here." And she goes, So she said, "I'll be right back." So she went and she came back and she had an old picture. And she had it up against her like this. And she goes, "Are you sure you weren't in my office?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, and she turned it and she held up the picture. They're almost exactly the same.
Oh, wow.
It was Martha.
You know, if I'd had to draw something like that, Martha would have had to look like a little stick person. Yeah.
Right, Martha. You can see the seeds. Well, back in them days, they weren't as heavy as they are now. You know, blah, blah. You know.
True, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have to worry about gluten back in those days.
Well, that's awesome, though. That's fantastic.
Well, I mean, I know, but it's just
that's how every day for you.
Yeah, well, you know, and that's another thing. People always say, well, if it's that prolific all the time, how can you stand even getting out of bed that you're going to be bombarded by all this stuff? Well, like you read my thing, I learned how to turn it on and turn it off a long time ago. Otherwise, I'd go crazy. You know, and people, you know, I have trained, you know, not a lot, but a few people who've had abilities, you know, when they were younger, but they wanted to reconnect with them, you know, and I just sort of help, you know, brush off the cobwebs and give them some focusing points. And we do some, you know, it's like I'm tutoring them, you know, to get back to where they were when they were a kid. And it's amazing. Some people have said, you know, wanted me to help them with a certain thing. And then over time, the certain thing that they might have had as a kid had morphed into something completely different, you know, and they're like, "Wow, I didn't know I could do this." I said, "Well, it's just like me. It morphs, you know, as the older you get and the more you use it." And that's what I tell them, you know, the more you use your gifts that you already have, the more readily available information comes to you. You know, clairaudient, which is, you know, ability to hear things, you know, when nobody else can. Clairescence, you know, you smell things. clairvoyant, clear viewing, just all these things, psychometry, touching, picking up stuff, all that stuff. It's just
Cool.
mine's morphed to where, I trained myself how to do the tarot cards, and because they kind of come natural to me, because I'm a self-taught magician over the years, because it got kind of weird because I started, I was very raw and blunt in my 20s as far as things happening, and I would cover it up, because it was so accurate and so scary, before anybody had a chance to think about what had just happened. I said, oh, that was a magic trick. Then I'd whip cards out or something. But even with cards, even when I was in high school, I would read people's fortunes, with cards, playing cards, because they are the modern version of the tarot. That's where they came from,
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the 78 full deck. It's only the 52. It's the lower part of, of the tarot deck, and I got pretty good at it. And I used to scare. Well, let's just put it this way. When I would go to a party when I was in high school, I did two things: magic and card reading. I want to go there to get the girls, and I'm the entertainment.
Right, right.
And did that give me girls? No, because where I grew up at, that was taboo. And that brings me to my first mother. My mother was a very devout Lutheran. I think it was Missouri Senate. I think it was St. Paul. It was either American Missouri Senate, but anyways, very uber religious. And when I was a little child, when I would experience stuff, you run to your mom, to protect you, to help you.
Right. Yeah.
And my mom, she would start quoting scripture and verse, and then she'd start pounding me with the Bible physically.
Oh my gosh.
And that's in that part of my story is in Haunted, from Netflix.
Yes.
And when it was finally finished, it was finally on, on Netflix, and I watched it, when it got to that part to where this actress, was hitting this little kid, but not really, but it brought back memories like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I flinched. I absolutely flinched at the screen. And I started I got a pain back here in my neck, back of my head, my shoulders, because that's where she would beat me from. I have scars on my back from it.
Gosh.
Now, mind you, when people, if some of your listeners out there have seen it, or or if you peruse it one day, now my Hollywood said they were going to take some artistic liberties to advance the story, and they absolutely did. And one of the first things I want to just put out there is that my story took place in the late 60s into the early 70s, not the turn of the 20th century. They made us look
right. Yeah.
I mean, we were pretty strapped for cash back in those days, but living on food stamps and all that stuff, and thank God for government surplus. But they made us look like Charles Dickens paupers almost.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So and my mother, the actress, they made her they looked like she was carrying the Bible around with her all the time. No. Now look, back in the late 60s, up until she died in 1972. Now my mother was 6'1", and my oldest daughter right now is exactly the same height as my mother was. And where my house was located, the house is no longer there. I've had so many people, where's the house at? I want to go see it. They tore it down. The city I lived in condemned it because it was built in 1864, and it had been a farm. It was a homestead farm originally, because my little hometown was incorporated, and became a town, I think, in 1843, I think. Anyways, so where the house was sitting, there was two things. The original house was facing east to west, and then the addition was north to south, like a kind of like this. But anyways, and the basement was dug out. It was just a dirt floor, and it had limestone, I guess casement,
the
made
wall, yeah,
the walls, and it was very roughly done. And on one side of it, I call it the light side because there was a window and there was one light bulb, and it used to have been the outside entrance, from the back of the house, from the original house. But then when they put on the addition, they enclosed the entirety because of that length, made it an enclosed porch. So the entryway to the basement was still there, but it was, in the back porch. But we had two entrances, one from the back where the porch was, in the back porch. And then we had the entrance that was inside the house. That was between our kitchen and our bathroom, in the downstairs. And that was the dark side. There was there was no ambient light. There was one light. It was on a chain that you had to go all the way down the stairs first, turn left, and right there was this big black void. And you would literally, if you didn't have a flashlight, you'd have to stretch your arms out and find a chain. It was that dark on that side. But also on that side was an old well. Now, I had been down there with my dad on numerous occasions trying to help him replace and cement in the limestone because it was, falling out of place, and there had been a cover over it. It was an old tin cover, and my dad took it off one time, and he was showing me, this was an old well because that's what they used to do, because that part of the Midwest during the wintertime, you needed to have warmth or your well would freeze. You wouldn't have any water, until spring. Well, I have your house over it, and it's somewhat warm, and I think there was an old pipe that would have been down there for an old wood burning stove that you would have kept that, basement kind of warm. But anyways, he showed me that, you could shine the flashlight down there, and there was a bunch of old wood and some limestone, but it was about 12, maybe 15 feet deep, zero water, none, and it was lined with bricks. But I used to be afraid of the dark like no other, because of all the things out here, ever since I was a little smaller child back then. So some would say that I had a very overactive imagination, but I know what was going on in that house. But no, none of my sisters, definitely not my dad, and absolutely not my mother, had any experiences. And so whatever this stuff was, and in it, there's what I perceive to be three spirits, of some children that somehow were associated with the well. And now I physically never saw them, but you saw some of the drawings that I had rendered. Yes. These were from way back in the day. Because, that's what I used to do. I draw this stuff, it's like, this is what I'm seeing. Why don't you see it? But in my mind, my dad, well, as I see it in the flesh, it don't exist. I'm going,
of course.
They're dead. They don't have flesh,
Smack.
Right. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Could have saw that coming, right? Anyways, but like I said, my mother, right across the street, just directly out our front door, across the street, was our church, St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Okay. And there was a big open field, and we called it the churchyard. But also, if you were across the street looking at the church, but if you look to your left, about maybe 300 yards, that's where my elementary school was. Now, where my house was located at was right in the middle of the block, right in the middle. Well, not right in the middle. It was the second from the corner, but, like I said, they built this neighborhood up around this old farm. And the old farmhouse they kept, tore everything out, so they could put all these homes in. So anyways, one of my friends we moved out of there in 74, 75. And, after my mother died in 1972, and I'll get back to that in a minute, and because I want to share with you the vision that I had of her, but I want to give you, some scope of what I had to deal with. So, you're a little kid, you move from a hometown, they're all your best friends, and then you disconnect with them and you don't see them for years, and then you reconnect with them, and it's like a great reunion. And so one of my best friends, who was just 4 houses down from me, he goes, "Hey, Harv, do you ever wonder why all of us came over to your house all the time?" And he says, "Well, I know it wasn't for my mom's cooking, because she could burn water,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's true, but not a very good cook. And anytime we had cookies, I used to pretend that they were, at least fudge, because they were burnt all the time. And I figured that that's what fudge looks like, dark. So,
Mm-hmm.
little crispy,
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, he said the reason why they used to come over all the time, and nobody ever spent the night with me, ever. I had one person, and that one person did not last the entire night. They had something happen to him. He never told me what happened. All I heard in the middle of the night was this blood curdling scream. And he's like, "Take me out, I gotta go." And he runs down the stairs, he's already out the door. And I remember it was raining, so we had to get him, and, had to wake up my mom and dad. And of course my dad was, "God, fine, he can wait." Dad, just give my mom, "Let's take him home. Let's take him home." Because my mom probably had a good idea what happened, because after we took him home, I got my ass beat, because it was my fault of what happened.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I think the word got out, because although we were really good friends, they moved not too long after, just up out of the blue moved. And I remember at school, every time I went to be with him, he'd literally run away from me, So, but anyways, but my other friend, he says, "Well, the main reason why we used to come over there all the time," he says, "because my mom was beautiful, and but she was 6'1" back in those days."
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Well, your mom was a freak, man. She was a freak." And then he goes, "Geez, how does that? Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been. I hope that didn't make you feel bad." I said, "No, I agree. She was tall,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody. I mean, I really truly think that this other friend of mine put the word out. I mean, I never knew what happened, but every house, every neighborhood has a haunted house."
Mm-hmm.
Shortly thereafter, ours became at least as far as my friends were concerned, the designated haunted house. So forget about stopping on, Halloween, eggs, all that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. But anyways, we lived through that. And then back to my mom. She died, in Netflix. On this show, like I said, they took a lot of artistic liberties. And at one point, I came to the conclusion, after I stopped going to my mom all the time for help, I just couldn't take the beatings anymore. This is about a year before she passed away. I was 10, when she passed away, but about a year before, I was about 9-ish. I was scared to death of these things. And at one point, it shows in the show that, I didn't want to be around anymore, because I couldn't take it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I went down. I wasn't in the basement. This happened. I'd never go down in that basement, but I was out in a small shed, in our backyard, and I was gonna, they showed me with a rope in my hands, and that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna hang myself. But something stopped me, and I went outside of the shed. Now, I used to dig by that shed all the time. And what I ran into was an old burn pile, from the days when they used to burn everything. And I found a small porcelain doll. It was about this big. I know in the show they show it's like this big, but it was about this big, And I had it. I didn't tell anybody. I mean, I used to find marbles and old inkwells and, you know, stuff like that,
Oh,
which
neat.
I wish I still had.
Sure.
But you know, hindsight's 2020. It was good therapy because I'd break them, you know, anger management. I'd throw the marbles at the inkwells, you know. And anyways, at some point, I have this doll, and I remember I was sitting on my bed and just trying to figure out, why is this here? And I went, I wonder if it belongs to the kids, or at least one of them. Now, in the show, it shows me taking it downstairs in the basement and placing it on the well. I didn't do that.
Don't blame you. Not even a little
You
bit.
know, but I did take it down, but I was on the light side. I went from the outside, you know, entrance down to the basement where the one window was, and there was enough sun coming in. And I turned the one light bulb on, and I took it, and there was an archway pass through between the two, you know, two sides of the basement. And I set it right there, right in the line of demarcation where the light met the dark. And I had it facing into. And I remember I backed out. You know, I backed up, you know, turned the light off, and I backed up the stairs. I made sure that there was enough light coming in the stairs, you know, so I could run and not hurt myself. You know, put it down. And then I don't know, I forgot about it for a couple of weeks. And then when I remembered, I went down on a Saturday morning because I was asked to get something out of there, some canned food. I can't remember what it was. Anyways, I went down there because it was on the light side. You know, does it make any sense to store something in some place you can't really see? Anyways, so I went down there and I'm rummaging for the stuff, and I noticed that the doll was gone. I went, oh, wait a minute, where's that doll? Now, because it's a dirt floor, I could see where I sat it. That hadn't changed. You can see the outline of the bottom of it. And I'm like, where the, you know, and the first thing that came to my mind was one of my older sisters came down here and found it, you know. So I went on a vengeful quest, you know.
Right.
Trying to, and nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. At least they say, you know, but they didn't know what I was talking about. And then shortly, you know, on the show, they make it look like it was just a day or two later, you know, but I used to be afraid of those. I mean, there's not just the kids, there's all different kinds of things happening, you know, in that house, different beings, I guess you'd call it.
Okay.
You know, the one that scared me the most was the stair climber. And there was 13 steps that went from our dining room up into the upstairs. There was 3 bedrooms upstairs. And you can hear every single one of those going creak. And then as you went up, it would do, there was 3 steps that curved to your left to the landing, to the hallway. My bedroom was the first, you know, at the top of the stairs. And, you know, in the show, it shows that my door's closed. I never closed that door. Never. Because the hall light was on. I would wait till the last person was asleep, and I would go out there and I'd turn it on and jump back in bed. But I can't, you know, but, you know, they show my bed shake. That happened all the time. My bed would shake, it would go jerk, jerk, and then, you know.
Wow.
And, yeah. And now this is Iowa, and, well, they had an earthquake back in the 1820s, which diverted the Mississippi River at the nose of where Iowa is. It used to be a little bit flatter. Was
that the same one that we had in Missouri? That
yes.
Made the, yeah. In New Madrid.
Yes, the New Madrid, yeah, the Madrid quake.
Yep.
But it rerouted, you know, 320 miles to the north, you know, of the Mississippi River. So, anyways, but we are nowhere near that river. You know, we're like an hour and a half to the west, maybe 2 hours. And strange thing is if it's going to have an earthquake, don't you think the entire house would shake?
You would, yes.
Yeah, not just my bed. And the many times that I had in the middle of winter, I'd have my blankets pulled off of me. Oh. Just as I get nice and warm, my blankets would go flying off. You know,
that's your safe spot. That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, you know, and then in the show they show the kid jumping underneath the bed. Hell no, I would never jump under my bed. The only thing that the one thing that I could do when I mustered up enough courage, I remember I'd be laying there, I'd be sucking in the breath, you know, and I'd jump out of my bed and I'd run to my older sister's room and jump in bed with her.
Oh, okay.
You know, and she would let me, you know, stay there for the rest of the night. But she was kind of like she watched over me. And, you know, that's why I had her on the show, because I wanted her there for validation. You know, because, you know, although, you know, to this day, she would say that, you know, she never really had any experiences, but she knew I was going through something that seemed real to me and it scared the crap out of me. But she did notice strange things that would happen when I would say that this occurred. You know, it was like a residual thing. So, you know, then I find out years later that a good half of my sisters, you know, had experienced something, but they were smart enough not to say anything. You know,
right. Bring mom's wrath down upon them. Right.
So, but anyways, so all this is, you know, happening to me, and this is, you know, I could have really had something snap in me real easy, you know. Sure. But when I was, like I said, when I was 9, you know, when I was wanting to not be around anymore, and I had an epiphany, you know. So anyways, back to the doll got taken, and that's when, at one point, because I would hear, although I didn't see these kids, but I would perceive what they looked like in my mind, but I did hear them. I mean, it's bad. I mean, you're just trying to fall asleep, and all of a sudden you hear your name being whispered, Harvey, like right there. You know, like, you know. There's no one there, you know. So, but on numerous occasions, prior to my mother dying, you know, they said, you know, don't worry, you know, we'll take care of it. Now, I didn't think that they meant they were going to kill my mother like how they portrayed it in the Netflix show.
Right. That was a little sinister. I kind of had to wonder.
And thus, you wonder why people have all the negative comments, you know, for the show. You know, oh, God, I even got accused when the first trailer came out for the show. It was on YouTube. You know, and I was reading some of the comments, and this one guy said, man, I feel sorry for the actors that had to play the stupid people that weren't supposed to be actors. You know? Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Well, I was sitting there just horrified with what you went through. I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, it happened, you know, and so I responded back to this guy, and I said, hey, look, I said, I don't know about anybody else. I'm just speaking for myself, but this is what happened to me. And I said, unless you were there, you can have your opinion, but that's all it is. I said, I was there. I had to live through this, you know, and I told him, you know, said it there and everybody, I said, you know, in Hollywood, made me sign a piece of paper that said that they would take absolute artistic, you know, creativity license to make the story the way that they wanted to make it.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and because trust me, I never had any scary music playing in back of me while that shit's happening.
That's only me.
You know, like, yeah, none of that.
Yep.
You know? So, with that being said, you know, so my mother died. I mean, I never, you know, the kids, they said they would, you know, take care of it. I never thought in a million years that they meant any. I think, you know, what I come to discern, you know, over the years was, I think they were trying to help me not worry about it mentally, you know, and because I needed to be a stronger, better person, or otherwise I wouldn't be around too long, you know, and because once they had said that, it's like I'd stopped hearing them for the longest time, you know, for a good year, for the rest of the year, And then on Thanksgiving evening, actually early morning of 1972, that's when my mother passed away. Back in those days, they didn't have CT scanners. They didn't have advanced ways to diagnose blood clots, let alone aneurysms. Especially in the head area, and she just up and died. The night before, she made 2 pumpkin pies that she burnt to crisp. I could tell there was some pumpkin pie in the middle, but everything else was black and charred. But that's what we were going to have for our Thanksgiving dinner. But so in the show, there was a dream sequence, that I had, but I saw my mother. Now, what happened, what you saw is not what happened,
Oh, okay.
and that's how I saw it. So I'll let everybody know exactly how it happened. As a matter of fact, when I described this to them, I was told by the director, because he had called me, 2 weeks after we wrapped up, and he said, you know what? We filmed that, he called it the dream sequence. He said it was beautiful, but we had to cut it down because it was eating up too much, because originally they had slated the shows to be like 45 minutes. Well, as you know, they're only 28 minutes long.
Right, yeah.
So something had to go, and the longest piece they had was how I saw my mother, the night she died. So they reshot it is what they did, in a little bit quicker, time frame. But on Thanksgiving Eve, back in the days, you get off school the day before, and then you had Thanksgiving, and then, at the weekend you go back to school on, Monday. Well, what happened was, we used to watch as a family, Dick Cavett or Johnny Carson, whoever that was, and because it was a weeknight and we didn't have school on Thanksgiving, we got to stay up. So I'd never watched a complete, Johnny Carson, let alone Dick Cavett show ever, because I'd always fall asleep. But one thing that was taboo to do in my family was to fall asleep on the floor without getting yourself up to bed. If I had to be woke up, I might as well not even have to worry about waking up, because my father or mother would have made sure that I was stomped into the ground to remind me that I just broke the rule. Anyways, so I'm wearing whatever clothes I had wore that day. And I remember I'm laying on the ground in front of our TV. It was a Magnavox, black and white, 1972. And I was, on my arm like this, watching TV, laying down, and I remember my arm fell asleep because I fell forward, and that's what woke me up. Now, last I knew, it was 9 o'clock at night, because I remember there was a clock above our TV, and it was 9. And the next thing I wake up, the lights were on. My sisters were down there with me. Some were on the floor, some in the chair, some were playing games. My dad was in his recliner. My mom was in this other chair. And anyways, when my head hit the ground, I woke up and the lights are off, but the TV's still on. It's Johnny Carson. And I'm like, oh God, maybe they just turned off, maybe they didn't notice. And I remember I turned over on my back, and all my sisters weren't there. My dad wasn't there in his chair, but my mother was in her beat up bathrobe, was in his chair. And I went, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I knew I was dead. I knew I was dead. For a second, I froze in fear.
Sure.
I knew I was going to get, she was just waiting for me. She's going to spring at me like a cobra, But that didn't happen. And the weird thing, the strangest thing that ever happened, my mother got up out of the chair. She goes, shh, it's okay, it's okay. And she laid down next to me on the floor, and she put her arm over me. But I'm like this,
Yeah, expecting
to be crushed or something. So she said, go back to sleep. It's okay. And so I I'm like, and she started hugging me and going, here it goes, bye-bye world, and I fell asleep.
Oh.
And then the next time I woke up, no TV, no, mom wasn't there, and there was a light that came in from the street lamp, into one of it was about a north-facing window, cascading light on me, and I'm laying there, and my feet were towards the chair, and I'm on my back, and to my right, I started hearing, I don't know if you can hear this, but it was like, and I remember looking, and I'm looking at the wall, and going, what the hell, it's like something was pounding in the wall. I'm going, what is that? And just as I was going to investigate, and I was going to get up to go upstairs, there's where my mom and dad's bedroom would have been the downstairs. It would have been the women's parlor,
Okay.
Like I said, it's a 3-bedroom upstairs, but I had my bedroom, and then my sisters at the time. There was 5 I had at the time. My 6th one came later when my dad got remarried. Anyways, and they had the 2 bedrooms, and my mom and dad were in this room. They converted into their bedroom, and all of a sudden, this rumbling got a little bit louder, and then I saw movement by my knees, and it was this old place, it's old Victorian, had pocket doors, recess doors.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know we had those. I didn't know they were there, and what we had on there for the longest time was an old, like, cardboard vinyl, accordion one that was on a track, that you move back and forth, and had the 2 handles come together. They were magnets, but no, these were wooden doors. I'm looking at them going, where do those come from? And they opened like this. They went, kind of like on Star Trek, but not like that.
Right.
They just opened up very silent, and that thumping was gone. And then I found out later that the thumping, they were the door weights, the counterweights inside the wall, because you open just the one and it activated the second one, so they'd open at the same time, and they would open equally at the same time.
Okay.
I guess that was very innovative in those days. So anyways, remember I'm laying there, I'm going, this is weird, and I looked in those doors, and I'm still laying on my back, and I'm looking, and it was pitch blackness. Like, you can always see in to my mom and dad's room, because they had a window, a north-facing window too. That same street lamp would cascade to it, but this was pitch black. And I'm like going, what's going on? And I remember I turned left, and I'm looking over the television. At the time, it said it was either 3:05, 3:10, something in the morning. All of a sudden, I looked at her wrestling, and I looked, and I saw my mother step out of that blackness. And I was about 4, maybe 5 feet away, because I was more center in the room. I was about 4 or 5 feet away from those doors, and I saw her walk out, and she was looking like straight ahead, no emotion on her face whatsoever, and she was like radiating, like this shimmering something. I thought it was, maybe it was some Avon spray she had on that was, being highlighted, from the light coming in from the window. And I remember she had this weird looking necklace, something on her neck, and picture a modern dance dress, one of those floor length ones, right? The tight bodice on top, and it's got kind of like a scoop neck like this, and long sleeves, tight, that just looked like their skin. And I remember there was some like lacy pieces over her fingers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as she walked out, now, like I said, she had a full-length skirt on it, but it kept coming out of the door. It just kept coming, like a long train of a royal wedding dress. Okay. And anyways, she walked to me, And I said, okay, now I'm dead. I'm waiting to be crushed. She lifted her leg, paused, stepped over me. I saw her foot hit the ground. She wasn't wearing slippers or anything, no socks.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt this numbing cold from the middle of my chest down to my knees. And as she stepped over me, going towards the opposite wall, I was freezing, and I remember I saw my breath at one time, and I kept seeing this thing come out, and then when I looked, you'd think I would feel something going over me. I didn't feel anything, but what was weird was as it was going over me, it looked like fog or a cloud rolling over me.
Okay.
Then when it got to the other side, it re-solidified and followed my mom. She went over. Yeah, so she went over in the corner room. There was an old crib there. My sister Paula, who was in the show with me, she was my second. She used to be my youngest, but now she's the second youngest.
Okay.
She had been living upstairs. I mean, she was 2 or 3 living upstairs with my sisters. But my mom went over to there, and she bent down, and I could hear a baby, as plain as day. And I just thought it was my sister Paula, And she bent down, she picked this child up, and you can see the arm moving like this, like how babies do. And she grabbed it and she put it in the blanket and kind of swallowed her a little bit. And she bent, just still no emotions whatsoever. I remember her eyes were like real super sparkly, like more so than I've ever seen them. And she bent down and she kissed the baby on the forehead and she said, "Mommy will be with you forever." And she put the baby back down and she turned, and she was walking back. And then at that time, she got up to me, lifted her leg again. And I'm just like, what the hell's going on? I'm kind of freaking out here, but I'm trying to be like I'm still sleeping.
Sure.
And she slowly looked down like this at me, and I went, and she goes, shh, like, stay. And then walked over me again, froze the entire time, all the clouds swirling, and then re-solidifying as she passed me. And as the last part of that train went into that blackness, the doors went like that. And then the next thing I know, I feel this pressure on my face and being shook and my head hitting the ground. And I wake up and my dad's over me. And I move from the living room to our dining room where our only heater of the house was. This house was so old. The technology of the day, because heat rises, you would have vent holes in the floor. The theory was that hot air rises and that would pass through up into the upper floors, through the vents. They're very pretty vents, embellished. They were round, probably about 14 inches, and it was cast iron grates on it. I used to like looking down and I would spit down through them. I never would go by.
Okay,
I know that sound, but that's what I did. But anyways,
that's a boy thing.
Or drop stuff. It is a boy. Well, my oldest sister did it too. But anyways, so my dad was, I know he was crying and he was really, as many times as he beat me, I'd never seen him that angry and that mad. I mean, he was literally throwing me, shoving me, getting me out of the dining room because that's where our front door was. And I said, by the time I was like, well, what's going on? Then the policeman came in, the fireman came in, and had a gurney. And then my pastor walked in and his wife. And I'm going, God, what's going on? And Mrs. Huber, the pastor's wife, grabbed me, by my hand, took me into the living room with my other smaller sisters. My 2 older sisters were in the bedroom, with everybody. And I hear my oldest sister saying, Dad, why is she so cold? Mom, wake up, And I'm going, wake up. I said, I just saw her. And then I got beat across I don't know who it was, but somebody smacked me across the face and told me to shut up. have more respect. So I don't know how long it was. They come out, they got my mom on a gurney, and the guy that was at the head of her was getting ready to, well, what happened was is her arm fell off from underneath, you know, and it just like nothing's there. And I'm watching this, and then the guy that was at the head, you know, where it was pushing up the blanket, put her arm underneath there, and then was going to pull the blanket over her head. The cop said, "Don't you do that. Not in front of these kids." You know, so he made it look like he tucked it underneath. Well, he did to keep it from, you know, her arm falling out again. Well, we found out hours later that she had passed, you know. And I was so happy. I was so relieved. I know that sounds horrible, but, you know, for somebody that was supposed to be my protector, you know, they always talk about mothers and sons, special relationships, stuff like that. I was scared to death of that woman. I didn't know what was scarier, her or the spirits. You know, so especially when, you know, it gets to a point to where, you know, it was kind of driving a 9-year-old to commit suicide. You know, that's not cool.
No, not remotely.
No. So when she passed, I cried, but there were tears of joy. You know, and then after that, a couple years later, my dad got remarried. We moved out of the area. Some other people moved into the house. I heard from my friends later on, years later, that, you know, although my dad tried to fix the house, you know, it was always in constant state of repair. The other people that moved in just let it go to, you know, to the trash. And that's why the city, you know, they condemned it and they tore it down. But the strange thing was, prior to them tearing down the house, for several years, almost like clockwork nightly, I would have a nightmare of my mother chasing me around that house for years.
Oh gosh. Chasing
me. And then I you know, I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was in the mid 80s. But I do remember not having the dream for about a month. And I was so worried because I thought, okay, well, something big's going to come, you know. And so I contacted my family, and my oldest sister told me, she says, "Oh, you didn't hear yet? Well, the city, you know, they condemned the house and they tore it down." I said, "Really?" So, of course, the next time I was able to go back to Iowa, I went straight away there, and it was no longer there. But like I said, I was back in the mid 80s, and ever since, I try to go back to my home state at least once a year. And I've done it, you know, for a long time now. But I do make a trip to where the house used to be. It's like a pilgrimage for me, just to assure myself that, yeah, this was real. This happened, you know. And I always stand, and I was asked by a person after they saw the show, you know, because they wanted to know, one of those people that wanted to know where the house was. And their question was, you know, because I told them that's what I did. They says, "Well, is the well still there?" And I said, "God, I hope not. But if it is, I don't feel anything." So people always ask me all the time, what keeps spirits earthbound, you know, and especially when it comes to houses and properties and stuff like that. It's because most of the time I feel that spirits don't know, or they're not aware that they're deceased. So why would they want to leave their dwellings? You know, so they hang around until they understand they're no longer there. Or if it was a simple, you know, we live on a very busy street.
Oh, that's okay. I wasn't sure if it was you or me.
Or me.
Or you.
No,
Gary.
Yeah, that's me. I apologize for that, everybody. But God bless them, right? Talk about heroes.
Yep.
But anyways, as many times as I've been back to that where the property used to be, and it's amazing that big old house used to fit between these two homes. It astounds me all the time. But what happened was that after the house was demolished and they backfilled. I'm sure they tore the old well out because
Filled it
I
in,
go
whatever.
to the whatever, But I always stand on the where it should have been. Now, mind you, the footprint of the building, and the property lines, both houses on either side bought half of the property. So that, so I'm not quite sure, when I go back, I try to get to the general proximity of where it used to be. But the strangest thing is that the one thing they didn't get rid of, my mother, her favorite flower is peonies. And there was a peony bush there when we lived there all those many years ago. And that same bush is still there today.
Wow.
I know.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. And I've seen it, it still blooms. So that's kind of, it's neat, but that kind of scares me, just like,
well,
crap,
sure.
now,
Now,
but so far, but so far there's nothing really, I've never had any issue or, but one of the biggest things is when, Netflix isn't the only time I've been on television. First time was in 2012 on my Ghost Story Caught on Camera. Now, I was investigating way before it was ever cool. I did a lot of it when I was back in my home state of Iowa. I had a plethora of old, farm homes that I could use because no one lived there and they were abandoned, and they had stories to tell. I got probably some of my best evidence, from those old farm homes.
How did the Iowans take that? Jerry is in Iowa as well, but
well, let's put it this way: back in those days, you don't talk about that stuff.
Very true. Yes.
Even to this day, there's some wizened people, but I know who I can and can't talk to about it. Because the whole thing, people always, they say I'm an atheist and all that, and I left the church years and years and years and years ago because I figured, why would I want to be devoted to somebody who wasn't devoted to me?
Right.
And especially if the way my mother portrayed religion, then it's not going to be for me. Especially when you have this is just my opinion, but I'm well versed in the Bible. Both testaments. Even the table of contents. A lot of people overlook that.
Yes, we do.
But there's so many hyperbole. It's so hyper. It's a lot of hyperbole, and there's a lot of, there's the Old Testament, fear God, because if you don't fear him enough, he'll kill you. Walk a fine line with him. And then Jesus comes in, and we have the New Testament. The whole rainbow thing, the sign of the new covenant, all that. And Jesus tells, well, yeah, that used to be my dad, but he's changed. Trust me. Well, I kind of believe it because my dad, who was the Old Testament, actually started his own church.
Oh, wow.
Back in the 80s, and Pentecostal, my dad was a Catholic, born and raised Catholic. My mother was Lutheran. My grandmother forbid my dad to even talk to my mom unless he converted. He didn't care. Sure.
All righty then.
And then his brothers, his older brothers, the rest of his family was Catholic. And then his older brothers became Pentecostals. That's fine. And they tried for years to get my dad involved into it. And, they're like, Joe, this would be really good for you because, you like fellowship. My dad's a talker. My dad was a people person to other people except his own family. But,
sure.
That's who he was. And so something happened to him physically, before the cancer and the heart attacks. He went to crank start a tractor, and he tore his bicep. The connector, the tendon, just ripped it off, the anchor point. So when he made a muscle like this, his muscle would go clear up here, into his shoulder. And it was like that for years. And, he went to go see orthopedics, and they said, well, Joe, we can connect it, but your arm's going to be like this for the rest of your life. Dad's like, oh, no. So one day, he was in pain. I mean, my dad was a very strong, big guy, and I mean, he couldn't even really use his fishing pole, and that just was eating him up. So his oldest brother took him to a revival, a Bible revival, and they had a famous faith, the Bible Belt faith healer was there.
Mm-hmm.
So he came up and doing his thing and asked my dad what he wanted. And he says, I want my arm to stop hurting. I want to be able to use my arm again. And the guy looked at him, and my dad says, all he did was lean into him and says, you have to believe that you can use your arm again. And he says, anything's got to be better. And then he tapped my dad on his forehead. My dad fell back, was convulsing and doing all this stuff. My dad.
Right.
But he was able to use his arm again. Not completely, but he could fish and pick up his, coffee mug, and he'd get back to work. So whatever happened, he started going to his brother's churches. And then my dad started doing Bible study, afterwards, invite people over to the house, and the word kind of got out, and they said, hey, you should come meet Joe. He's really cool, and he's got something to say, something to share. So push come to shove, there was 400 plus members of the Pentecostal church, and in less than 2 years, they all started following my father. And the preacher wasn't very happy. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So anyways, my dad just liked the fellowship, and they started doing a bunch of stuff that, normal churches do, help people in their community. They do fundraisers and have hog roast and, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, neat.
To bring people together, and they'd raise money and they'd help people. Mm-hmm. Well, then the IRS got word of that.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and they said, hey, look, that's cool that you guys do this, but, giving us a bunch of receipts, excuse me.
Sure.
Giving a bunch of receipts doesn't, you need to become a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
My dad goes, what the hell's a nonprofit? He says,
Right.
we don't profit off this. The money we take, we share it. We give it 100%. And that was true. And they said, well, that's Jim, fine, and Danny, but you have to account for it, as a nonprofit. Otherwise, we'll tax you because it's income. Mm-hmm. They said, but we're not even a declared church. Oh, and that's another thing. In the state of Iowa, if you want to gather and worship, you have to have a permit.
Mm-hmm.
So it was getting really super complicated. And, so they went through all that, and then they used to meet at, everybody's houses, and then they couldn't hold everybody's house, let alone everybody's cars. So they found an old storefront, in one of my hometowns, by my little town, and they rented out the store next to the river, and they came up with it's called the Church of the Living Waters, which is still there to this day. And they just got too big, and then the state of Iowa stepped in and said, hey, this is great. Where's your permit? Where's your nonprofit status?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do this, you got to have somebody be the leader. You have to have a board, and you have to have somebody's got to be the preacher. Of course, everybody said that my dad needed to be the preacher. My dad's going, no. Not what I signed on for, not what I wanted. So he left the church. The church he started.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because he didn't want to have to deal with it. But the church is still there. One of the people that, was friends with my uncle, and, his name is John Shetta, is the preacher there. At least, he was the last that I knew. But anyways, so he went and became ordained, and they got the permits and, to gather, and they got the nonprofit status, and, they're doing well. And the ironic thing is, every single year, as you know how it is back here in the Midwest, during the spring floods,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what an appropriate name, the Living Waters Church, because it
Mhm.
always goes into their downstairs, always.
Uh-oh.
You know, so yeah,
Mhm.
so you know, the portrait of my life is I'm sensitive, yes. I do a lot of things, yes, but all I ever wanted to do was to help people. You know, when I finally had that aha moment, when I turned around, I couldn't run from it, so I turned around to face it. And at first, what it confronted me, I was scared to death. You know, but once I started, and that's when I really started doing a lot of research. You know, read a lot of books. Fortunately, I had a Jewish rabbi, which is a Navy non-denominational or multi-denominational, chaplain on board our ship. You know, he was into the Kabbalah, the mystery of the Torah, the inner workings and codex. And the weird thing is that he knew that I was coming, and he knew that I needed to be mentored. He knew what I could do. He even got my mother's name. This is all from the Torah. You know, it's all in Hebrew, right? And he's showing me. He says, "Look, this is you. It's all about." I said, "I don't read Hebrew." You know.
It looks like Greek to me. I don't know.
Yeah, right. So anyways, but it was amazing how much he knew about me. So he's the one who had a nice little metaphysical collection, book collection that, I had plenty of time because we were out to sea. I read several of those books and I'm going, oh my God, I can do that. I can do that. Yep. I can do that. Yep. I do all that, and it's been going strong ever since, and one thing I can't do, and I don't know why, especially with the ability to remote view. And remote viewing is the ability to see things at great distances without physically being there and describing physically what's going on, mentally what's going on, emotionally what's going on. I've been on, over 1,000 investigations since I've been, doing this. And the majority of those have been over a telephone, and people from around the world, they call me, they give me an address. And not only do I physically tell them what's there, I tell them historically what was there, what's going on historically, with the property. Because a lot of times, I mean, I've had brand new developments, brand new homes, people just moved in, first buyers. And 2 weeks later, they're having paranormal stuff going on. Well, they call me and I tell them, well, it's not your house, but your house happens to sit on part of a footprint of an older house that had been there first. And this is why you only hear activity in a certain part of your brand new big sprawling house, but it's confined to a smaller area. It's because back in the day, there was a smaller footprint of a building here. And then they do historical research and then they find out that I was correct. And there's many times I've actually drawn, the original, what I perceive to be the original building. And I can't tell you how many pictures I was given back up to people do historical research. And if it's not right on the money, it's damn close. So
that's fantastic.
But, people say, oh, well, you use GPS and you're using Google Earth and all that. And no, I don't. I sit on my couch or I sit at my chair in my, in my living room. I have my phone, yes, but I'm not that much of a technical person. But the stuff that I pick up, especially when the person, the homeowner is right there, and I tell them stuff that they haven't given any clue whatsoever to the investigators. But I tell them, I said, well, did you mention this, this, and this? Well, I didn't know if they were ready for that. How do you know about that? So that right there dispels a lot of the notation of that I cheat somehow. I don't know how it happens or why it happens, but it happens. And on my Facebook, I heard you plug my Facebook page and my YouTube. Thank you.
Sure.
And I saw that you posted my very first TV appearance. That was my ghost story caught on camera.
Yes.
that was, I helped on, it was called the Alexander Major's house out of Kansas City, Kansas. And
I know it.
my buddy, Rob Garcia from Elite Paranormal of Kansas City, you know, he's kind of the go-to guy in that area right there. Well, he was the very first investigative group, you know, that was able to go into that house, because it had been owned by a person for years that, you know, he didn't like anybody, you know, messing with it, you know, because he didn't believe in that stuff. And, you know, it was a historical house and he wanted to be respected as that, as a museum. And then the people who took it over next, well, they're like, you know, there's some weird crap going on in here. Can you help us? So they went to him and he called me, you know, and now I actually drew the house, you know, but I drew an addition that had been torn off the house back in the early 1900s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with that house, on the back side of the house, the side that's, it doesn't set on the river, but it's fairly close to the river. You know,
right.
You know,
I've seen it, but I haven't been in it.
Right. There had been an old cooking kitchen, you know, that they had, you know, for whatever reason in the early 1900s, tore it off. I guess it became obsolete. And the house is big enough, you know, to have the kitchen that it has, you know. So it was modernized and, you know. So, but anyways, so I drew that part. And it was funny because my friend's going, yeah, nah, I don't know if that's not here, you know. And then we find out later that's exactly how it was. But you know, so that's I, you know, I mean, I could tell you about it, but you know, kind of running out of time. But you know, just go watch it, and that gives a really good snapshot of what I do for the paranormal by using my remote viewing. You know, and the lady that was there, she was the first time. This is her first big investigation, and the first time she'd ever been as a first time in. You know, and the entire time when I connected with them, they called me a half hour after being there. And the entire time I was being inundated by whatever this energy was to have this girl, her name's Christina, to go into the kitchen all by herself. And, you know, that kind of breaks a lot of protocols, safety protocols, you know. That's why when Zach Bagans and Aaron, you know, alone or Billy, you know, I'm like, dude, you're just asking for trouble.
Oh, yes, he is.
No, but we had some, you know, very good, you know, evidence that was pulled out of there. I mean, EVP's calling Christina a pig and saying, "Too proud, Christina," you know, because she had a chip on her shoulder. She thought she was invincible. So she went into the kitchen and I told her to start taking a picture, you know, towards the right corner. And she, you know, I'm listening at the same time. Well, Rob says, well, first he wasn't going to do it. And then he finally said, well, is there anything telling you that I can't be standing in the doorway between the dining room and the kitchen filming? I said, no, as long as she was in there. So she goes in and she gets pushed out, physically pushed out, you know, and something passed through her, and not only did it, I mean, I heard her screaming and yelling, she's running out, Rob's chasing after her, and all I could smell was this. Think of the cheapest bar you've ever been in that has a really bad hygienic issue, you know, keeping the house, you know, clean, you know, that smell of whiskey and stale beer and, you know, a lot of tobacco.
Smoke, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I smelled, and that's what I could almost taste. And that's exactly what was reverberating through her body, whatever this thing was that passed through her. Because when I was talking to her, she was almost kind of wanting to throw up because it was so pungent, you know, repugnant. And, you know, so when I'm telling her without her saying a word, you know, what she was experiencing, you know, that was creepy. But then, you know, when I had her go take pictures, you know, the stairwell is, you know, the main staircase, you know, start taking pictures. I said, go stand in the hallway, the beginning of the stairs, just stand there, just start taking pictures. And it was the day after Rob's going through the evidence, and he calls me, he's all like, oh my God, you gotta watch this. So there's these three still pictures. You see this shadow moving from the right of her field of vision, passes her, and she responds that there's something made her cold, and she felt something like past her. And then you start seeing the next two shots of the shadow passing upstairs. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, you know. So, like I said, I've done over 1,000 investigations over the years, and I feel like I'm used more as a pre-investigation tool. People will call me because, you know, it's even to this day, it's still chic to have a ghost in your house, and everybody seems to have one, you know. So, you know, so what people do is when I say they give me an address, all they give me is a street address. I don't get a state. I don't get a country. I don't get county, nothing. Just the number. Let's say it was 127 Oak Street.
Okay.
That's all I get.
And there you are. Yeah, start reading.
Right. And I start reading. And one time with Rob, I've done so many with Rob. I've done over 100 with Rob, I think. Anyways, one time I was zeroing in on the place where he was, and it was weird because I landed, it felt like I was a bird. That's how my first visions come in. I feel like I'm a bird flying, and then I hover over a spot, and then next thing I know, I'm at the street level, and I'm looking, you know, and I'm seeing all this stuff, you know, this one house. I can't remember where, it was either in Independence, Kansas or Independence, Missouri. I can't remember which. But anyways, I said, you know, it's on a historic street. It's a historic house, and on the street, there's looks like a wrought iron, you know, horse head with a ring in its mouth. And he says, yeah, that's right outside, right there. He says, if you can tell me how many there are. I said, there's 3 of them. And he says, yeah, you're at the right place. But it was weird because I saw myself walking up the front, you know, walking up the walk, because it was 4 steps up from the street, and then the sidewalk, and then you had to go up 1 or 2 more stairs. I think it was 2 stairs. And then the sidewalk kind of arched upwards in a slow angled arch, kind of like a little hill, and then it flattened out again just before the stairs. You know, it's 4 steps up, and then it had this dark maroon door, but had been painted that color. And they're going, yeah, and he's going, yeah. And I said, there's two windows on either side, they're long and skinny, about the length, and almost the entire length, maybe except maybe 12 inches from the floor. He goes, then I hear the owner saying, yes. And I said, okay, well, obviously I'm at the right place. And right at that second, now it had been windy that night, okay? Pretty windy. And I said, okay, I'm coming in. Just as I said that, the door blew open. I heard it, and they all jumped. Because it was that'll happen. Just like a classic movie, scary movie, the door blows open and the wind's, there. That was just a fluke. I'm pretty sure, we talked about it. That kind of, Rob doesn't get jumpy, and that jumped him pretty good. And
well, that's too funny.
Yeah,
it's a neat,
but
yeah.
Yeah, but I told him, I said, look, I said, maybe someone didn't shut the door completely, But then we found out, and then that's, the wind blows. Sure, it's going to open it, and it's quiet in there. You guys are listening, and I'm giving you all this information. I said, it's got to be more coincidental than anything else. But one of the main experiences that was happening there, that particular door, even when it was locked in the middle of the night, would open up on its own. So I don't know, maybe the spirits were wanting me to make a grand entrance, you know.
Possibly.
You know, and I think that have you ever been to the Wormel house?
No, it's another one I've driven past a lot.
Right.
Right.
So I've done many, he's done many investigations there, and I've helped him on several. And one of the spirits there is a little girl, and I'm reading, and I'm like I said, I'd done the house several times. It's kind of neat the first couple times, and I'm getting all these parts of it, and they go into different rooms, and I'm explaining to them what's there on the walls picture wise, and then all of a sudden they're in the main dining room, which is I guess doubled as a ballroom too, I guess. Anyways,
right.
I said, we're on the telephone. I'm on the cell phone, with him, and I said, Rob, I said, something's telling me for you to bend down. I said, because you're near the table. He says, I'm right here. And he had his hand on the table. And he goes, why? I said, bend down. There's a little girl underneath there. She wants to say hi. And he goes, what? I said, just humor me. Just do it. Mm-hmm. I said, just tell her who you are. So I hear him. Said, hi, this is Rob. I said that I heard that, I told that little girl's underneath her. And all of a sudden, I didn't hear it in my phone, but on his phone. And he captured it because he always records everything we do. He says, Harvey, just heard it. Sounds like a little girl laughing. Did you hear that? I didn't hear any of it. Nothing. Until he played it back for me.
Caught the EVP. Mm-hmm.
How
neat.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's got quite a collection of some of the stuff that I've helped him on. I've had people call me from Europe, Germany, England, a lot in England, Scotland, Australia. I had a few South American people, one in Argentina.
Not neat.
I want to say Ecuador, but I can be wrong. But even South Africa, and that was before, that was before I've been on television. Then I'm on TV and, on My Ghost Story, and a few more people contacted me. And then I was on, in 2017, I was on A Haunting, TLC's A Haunting, with a story that I submitted from a local case here. And then several thousands of people, Google searched me, and hundreds of people called me. And then Netflix happens. I wasn't quite ready for that. The producer said, he says, expect a lot of people to find out who you are. And he says, well, I told him about the other. He goes, no. He said, you don't understand. This is Netflix. Those are just networks. I said, we're worldwide. They're not.
Exactly.
So I did a lot of readings, and then they finally petered out. And then the casting director who I talked, earlier, he called me, 6 months after the show had already been out and was still doing pretty well. He says, just want to let you know we got our second season, but it's thanks to your actual episode. And I says, wow. What does that mean? He says, well, when we went back into, to Netflix, we have to give them a random sampling of all of our successful shows, the best ones, because we want to use the best ones. Mm-hmm. And he says, yours is one of the most watched, repeatedly watched. Now I watched the first series, and I met several of those people, but the one who affected me the most was the day I was leaving from the hotel. She was just going to go, was a lady who claimed to have been abducted, from ever since she was a little kid all the way through college. And she was scared to death, because she said people follow her all the time. Her phones are tapped. I'm thinking, oh God, this lady, she's crazy. But what's kind of funny is, as I'm sitting there, we're in the hotel lobby, I'm waiting for our van. And as I'm sitting there, there's these two guys, they weren't wearing black suits, but they were dressed really nice. They kept looking at her. Just wouldn't stop staring at her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So maybe she's not so crazy.
Well, all I know is that, she said, because she had heard me talking about my experience and stuff like that, with the film crew and all that stuff. And I says, well, yeah, I mean, I have recordings of stuff and, pictures. And she says, well, I mean, I don't really have that, but, I got this weird thing right at the base of my neck. I says, what? And she said, well, look, and this scar, I don't know what to say. Scared the crap out of me. It's like I could stick my finger all the way into her spine. Literally, there was a hole. I mean, it was healed, but it was like something punched in and removed that like a tube of skin, like a miniature hot dog. It was probably about the size of a pencil,
Mm-hmm.
But you could look down into it. And it was deep. And she did show me one picture she had. It was of an x-ray. There's something lodged in the base of her, where the pituitary gland is. It was, looked kind of like a diamond shaped thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like this shape. And they can't remove it. They don't know what it is. And every time that they've tried to do CAT scan or MRI, it always would interrupt it wouldn't take an MRI or it wouldn't do a CAT scan. So who knows? That's weird, but she was kind of having second thoughts, about doing it. But, you get kind of obligated that if you don't do it, there could be some legal ramifications.
Sure. Sign that contract.
Yeah, you do,
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, overall the experience was, I mean, they were all nice. What I got a kick out of was, they treat us really well, but they were treating their own, members of their staff like crap, yelling and screaming at them and hurry up and, quit lollygag and it was almost kind of pathetic. And my youngest sister goes, is it like this all the time? I said, no, this is the first time it's only because this is the first big production that I've ever been a part of. Even TLC was just a director, a sound man, and one camera guy. And they rented a house in Pacifica, really not the house, that it happened in, but it was really close, that had its own stuff going on in it, and I told them about it. And, but anyways, yeah. And my ghost story calling camera, although it was at Studio City in a studio, there wasn't half the stuff that Netflix had. I mean, as far as, you walk and look intimidating. It's like, I thought you were going to interview me. It looked like a Star Wars something with all these machines and, but when we were filming, there's some strange things that happened. The key light above me kept like strobing, and the director's going, what the F? What's causing that? But anyways, and then a few times the sound man came over and he had to ask, he's going, are you whispering like an old woman by any chance? And I said, what are you talking about? You told me I can't whisper, and if I did, why would I sound like an old woman? He goes, I thought so. I think maybe because, you drained like 6 battery packs already, for your mic, and he changed it out twice, the actual mic, and he kept getting these weird sound anomalies. And then the camera that was on my left doing a profile, I didn't see anything, and the cameraman didn't see anything, but the director said cut because he saw something black, went from here. I'll use my phone to show you what he saw, because he's behind the desk watching it on his computer, and all of a sudden this happens.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was my phone. But he says, what the hell? Yeah, he said, what happened? But now it was weird because my daughter was sitting on that side, And she kind of shares, oh my God, so that was cold. And she didn't know where it was coming from because it was very warm in there, when we were there. So, yeah.
Spirits moving through.
I would like to see those edits, of what happened. And it wasn't just us. There had to be other things that happened too, to other people. But, yeah.
Oh, would they let you if you contacted them?
Oh, I mean, they don't. I mean, I have asked them, and they're like, well, you'd have to go to the editor, and then I contact the editor, and he says, well, he says, I really can't, it's company property, and and he says, well, if you get their approval, I don't have any problem. So I just want to see. You don't even have to give it to me. So well, I can't even do that because it's intellectual property or whatever they call it.
Right. Yeah.
Dang. Yeah. Well, dang. But that was kind of it was kind of cool. To be sharing a haunted story in a completely different house than I've ever been in. That's haunted.
Right. Mm-hmm.
and then they catch stuff. That's something. So, but anyways, yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And like I said, I do help people on Sundays. I know you caught one of my shows.
Yes, I did. That was before I even knew you were the guy from Netflix.
Right.
I started looking you up and going, "Oh wow, this is a catch."
Yeah. Well, thank you. But this is and what it is. It's called Sunday Insights. It's on my paranormal remote viewer, Harvey Althaus. I know that's a mouthful. Even Facebook says you might want to shorten that title.
Right.
But anyways, what I do, I mean, I do so many readings, but there's a lot of people that, I mean, I do charge, and I think I'm one of the cheapest ones out there, but I still want to be compensated for my time because I spend lots of time helping people,
Sure.
But what the show is for is just I use it as a format because there's a lot of people out there that, they don't really want an hour. They just, you saw it. What I do is I try to give people, yeah, they have a question or, what do you see for the now? It's just healthy insight. It's like they're having a conversation with their own conscience,
Right.
And they already know what they need to do. They just need to have that little push.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, that's what, that's what I provide. And, and I get a lot of, messages afterwards, and one thing I started to say, but I haven't done yet. One thing I don't do missing people. You'd think that would be one of the best uses, for remote viewing, but I don't know why, but it's like my body won't let me do it.
Okay.
There was a case out here back in the sometime in the 1990s, maybe early 2000s. A little 15-year-old girl from Morgan Hill, California. Her name was Sierra Lamar. Got abducted. She was waiting for the bus to take her to school, and I was contacted by Santa Clara County, Sheriff's Department, because they had heard about me, because they were looking for anybody with any information, no matter how far-fetched, whatever, just something to point them in a direction.
Sure.
And the strange thing is when I was talking to this detective, he was asking me, what do you see? What do you feel? Explain to me what it is you do. So the weird thing is that as I'm talking, I said, I don't know why I'm going to say this. And a lot of times, and I always preface my readings, don't know where the information comes from. I don't know if it means anything to you at all, but because I'm connected with you, it's got to mean something to you, or at least it needs to be shared with you because I'm not purposely thinking about it, before. So I'm talking to him and he says, well, what do you see? And I said, well, I see a field. Looks like stubby grass, but about 6 to 8 inches in height. There's a lot of it out there, but it's dried, but it's cut. And I said, I'm being drawn to the middle, or not exact middle, but, further away from where you're standing. Yeah, you know, and I said, and I'm looking to my left, and about a quarter mile away, maybe less than that, it looks like a white pickup truck. It's got big black rim tires on it, and it's got, you know, that dark tinted windows all the way around. And I said, it looks like it has racks on it. It looks like pipes or something. And then he goes, oh my God, where are you? Are you here? I said, no, why? He goes, well, I'm at one of the places that's connected to the crime scene, you know, from what happened. And he says, you said about the middle of the field. But I said, I don't know, this sounds strange, but I see like a bag, and in it there's folded clothes. And he goes, that hasn't been let out publicly yet. He says, what about this truck? I said, I don't know. It's just, but it was a field hands truck. It was a white Ford F-150, big tires, black rims on them, dark tinted windows. He had racks on it, you know, on the back of it with irrigation pipes on it.
Oh boy.
So I was picking up what he was looking at real time. You know, especially how, you know, in the the field that he was in was a cut hay field. You know, that's what that grass was.
Wow.
You know, and
but that doesn't help locate the girl. That's just
No.
you're seeing what he's seeing.
Yeah, it's like I connected through him. And he says, well, what else do you see? He says, do you see like any other place? I said, well, one other place. I said, I don't know. To me, it looks like a lake. It looks like a man-made recreational lake. I feel it's east of where you're at. I feel like you have to go up hills, down round, go down about 6 S curves, and then you're right there. You're like in where people pull in for picnics, and then but you don't stay there. You drive, you hang to the left, and the road takes you up this hill, and you start seeing the lake better. But then you don't go down the hill. You turn off to the left, and then you go up this service road, and then at the very end, I said it's about a half mile up, there's a chain link fence. It's about 8 or 9 feet high. It's a square, and inside of it, it looks like 2 tanks. One's taller and skinnier than the other one. The other one's shorter and whiter. And I said, he goes, what else? I said, and not too far from where, I guess it's parking areas right there, I see a trail. And if you follow that trail, if you go to the trail and turn right and go up about 500 feet, there's a big giant rock. And he goes, have you been to Anderson Lake? I said, no, where's that at? He says, that's directly east of where I'm at. And I said, and how do you know about those water tanks if you've never been there? I said, what water tanks? He said, the tanks that you just described that are up that road. And he says, now how do you know about the trail? You know, have you ever hiked on it? I said, no, I don't even know where you're at. And he says, then how do you know about the big giant rock at the end of it, about 500 feet?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So next thing I know, he says, I need you to talk to somebody right now. It was Santa Clara County FBI. And he says, we need to know of your whereabouts, where you were and such and such. I said, wait a minute.
You called me.
Yeah, I said, you called me. He says, but, you know, this is a lot of specific, you know, especially the bag. Because the bag turned out being her bag, her school bag.
Oh, boy.
And the clothes that she had in it was the clothes that she had left her house with. And she always wore different clothes. You know, she wore different clothes underneath the clothes that she got out of her house with because her dad was really strict. She was a very, very pretty young woman, you know. So the bus stop was only 6 blocks away from where, you know, her house was, literally around the corner. You know, and he says, do you see any vehicles? Do you see any, you know, other than that truck? I said, no. But what had happened was, the only person that was actually ever connected to this was a clerk from a local chain store called Safeway. And they had found her DNA in his car.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah. and he was trying to, he was trying to tell him that he had dated her once, but the parents, they don't know him, and dad was so strict and controlling with her. He knew all of her friends. He would never let her go out with, but then again, his daughter would wear one set of clothes and then change into other set of clothes, when you weren't there. So who's to say? But he was charged in her disappearance. Let's put it that way. But so when I've had so many people call me, to help. I mean, as much as I'd like to, I wish I could. My mind won't let me. But one thing I know I can do, because I did it on my wife, not on purpose, but when I was discovering that I could do this all these years ago, it was just an accident. But I've had people ask me to spy on their ex-lovers.
Oh boy.
Or their husband or their wife. That I don't do either. I said, if it's that bad, you need to see a marriage counselor.
Exactly, yeah.
You don't need me.
Or just get over it. One of the two.
Yeah. Or just, if it's that bad, just, go your separate ways and start over again, or, something. But yeah, so that's what I do. Goodness. And I and it's just, I feel really good when I can help people. I help people, on whatever, and most of it's about health, and most of it's about, connecting with, past loved ones. I've never considered myself to be a medium, but like, there's been frequent times when messages from from departed ones, would come through. They're really strong, and I get a lot of detail that, how would I know about this detail if it didn't come from them? And I'm talking to these people that I don't know who these people are. And I think that's what makes it work for me, because the less connected I am with the person, the more I have the ability to read them. Now I've had people that want me to read them badly, but I can't, because they put too much, energy out here.
Out there.
They're running their own interference, And then I have some people I go up to and I'm going, okay, we're done here. I don't want to read them. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to say it. I hate considering myself judge and jury, but sometimes you have to,
Exactly. Yeah. Whatever's coming through is enough to affect you that way. Run if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've been doing this long enough to where I can tell when I need to do that, and then I have the people who get so hooked on what I do. It's like they can't move without consulting me,
Right.
And then I said, look, I'm not a daily horoscope. Okay. I don't work like that. So if that's what you're looking for, that's not me. You can go to any newspaper. Well, right now they're all online. You can go to your own daily horoscope, and
have it delivered right to your email.
Right. Yeah. Right there.
Yep.
And I don't, that's not how I work.
Yeah. Go see where Madam Cleo or whoever that was is now.
1-900. Yep.
Yes.
I mean, that knocked my socks off, because they jumped from 1-800 to 1-888, and then right into 1-900.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, I have a friend of mine I want to give a shout out, if it's okay. His name is Rick Wade.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. His name's Rick Wade. He's out of Michigan. And, he got into the game, this whole paranormal thing, like late, like after ghost hunters had been out for a while, and, he had started having his own, got interested in it. But anyways, he's always been sensitive, but it took him, dabbling in the paranormal, investigating it, toward, came out of him. And one thing he's really good at, besides, besides, cross loved ones, is past lives. He's really, really good at it. And it's, I do past lives, but not like, as I'm not as accurate as he is. He's scary accurate, when it comes to past lives. And it actually really, really gets you thinking. And there's a lot of, it helps you make those connections, And it's like me, like I'll reference something and I'll say, not sure if this is correct, but this is what I feel. And he's like, well, this is it. And they're like, yeah, so anyways, I like giving him, giving him plug, every now and then, because, we do our own networking between us. There's things that, I can't do. I send people to him, and there's things that, he can't do or he doesn't want to do.
Right.
He'll send it my way. We get it, never met him personally for as long as I've known him, but he's a good guy. But yeah, so
nice.
Yeah. Oh, we're a little past your time. I apologize for that.
We are. Oh, no, you're fine. I have artistic license, shall we say?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can. I've got a couple more hours there, but we don't have to go that long.
Yeah, well, I'm getting kind of tired because I have to be to work early.
You were
tomorrow.
looking a little, yeah, and our voices start going. And,
yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
I've already.
The old dog has come up and nudged me several times now.
It's like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, hey, it's time to GOOUTSIDE.
Yes, it is. Like I said, once you get with like-minded people who are on the same page, you can talk about this stuff for hours. But there's always another day. Absolutely.
Yep, precisely. Well, I hope you come back and see us.
Oh, I'd love to. This is great. You're very easy to talk. I've been on a lot of radio shows and a lot of podcasts, and there's some people that just, they just want to do it just to have you. And then there's other people like you that, really make you feel at home. And I really appreciate that. It must be because it's that Midwestern thing. I don't know.
I think so.
I feel like it should be. I feel like we should be having coffee together.
Hence the cafe in our name.
There you go. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. Yes, I look forward to in the future coming on.
Just drop me a line anytime, or I'll tag you, and we'll have another fun go.
Yeah. I got a lot of stuff.
And that's awesome, because I'm boring. How would people get a hold of you if they're looking?
I used to have a website, but I like those places that suck you in. It's free, and then
Right.
you make a name for yourself. The next thing
they want money.
they're like, "Hey, this guy's making money off of you," So yeah, then they want to charge you, and I'm like, "But I could go get a brand new website." Well, that's okay, but you can't get a brand new website with a store. I said, "Yeah, I can." But anyways, it just I'm mostly Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well. It's at Harvey Althaus on Twitter. I have my own regular page. I have a homepage, Harvey Althaus on Facebook, and then I have the Paranormal Exchange, which is just a place to where people can collectively come and share, their experiences with the paranormal, show their evidence, whatever. It's kind of a self-managing thing. And I just started a new page. It's called Paranormal Support Group, and that's really starting to take off. It's a private page.
I hadn't visited yet, but I saw the note.
Yeah, it's a private. Right now it's private, and because I have so many people who contact me, not necessarily for a reading, but they'll pay me for my time just to listen to them talk about their paranormal experiences, and it's kind of amazing. Have so many people listening. I mean, just even the people over the years that I've encountered, it's pretty much the same experiences, but depending upon, it seems, where you live, if you happen to live anywhere in the Bible Belt in the United States, super, super hard to talk to, people that are not going to think you're crazy,
right?
About this stuff, and then you go on the fringe, because how many people I would say probably the majority of people that I help, especially when it comes to ghosts, they're Christians. They're bona fide Bible thumping Christians. A lot of Pentecostal, you know, and what's the other one? Baptist. A lot of Baptists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm like, what's the matter? Can't pray it away.
They're going to burn just thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, they're like, well, you know, I just want to keep this on the down low. And I mean, that's what I did for years. I said, great. You know, I keep it very confidential, and then taps come out and I'm going, no, this is not, no, this is fake. None of that's real. Don't pay attention to that man behind the green curtain. You know?
That's right.
I'm glad you understand my metaphors here.
I do completely. And then the little dog goes over and exposes you.
Right. Absolutely. You know, and, but what I find that is ironic is the actual fear that these people have. You know, they are absolutely terrified, you know, and I can only do so much, but what I do on my end is I kind of, you know, I mean, I don't know 100%, you know, what's causing it, but what I do is I kind of validate them, because I don't, you know, when they say, can I ask you, you know, this is what I'm feeling, and then I go into therapist mode or something, you know.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Right.
It's cathartic for them. It
very
totally,
cathartic. Absolutely. Yeah. And if it's just a one person, and if I'm that person that they can trust, and not be non-judgmental, and somebody who's had very similar circumstances, you know, that's why I made Paranormal Support Group. Okay. You know, and it's I have, you know, people I invite, you know, it's no problem. I mean, I do have two things. I mean, you can find me on, you know, you can find the page on Facebook, but I'm being very selective who gets in. Okay. And I'm asking there's two things that people have to do, you know, people who find me that want to join, as opposed to me inviting you. There's a question that I ask that I want you to look at it, and I want you to honestly answer it. And then you need to agree to the page rules, because I've been to too many groups, you know, that although they have rules, unfortunately they don't enforce them. Right. You know, and I hate to be callous and I hate to be picky, but I absolutely wanted a space that people could go to that don't have a place to vent, that don't have a place, you know, that they could talk about this stuff. And I'm going to be, you know, I don't know when, but it's going to be soon. I'm going to be doing a Paranormal Support Group, you know, live stream, just like I do for my, you know, Sunday Insights on my paranormal page. You know, nice. And and it's going to be, I'm not going to do any readings. I'm just going to, we're just going to talk about it, you know, because a lot of people who have, you know, I've come to find out, and a lot of other researchers and people would agree, you know, the majority of people who end up having paranormal issues, they have PTSD in some form or another. You know, and if you know, and everybody wants to feel normal. You know, they don't want to be on that fringe. They don't want to be that chastised person, you know, shoved to the curb. Right. You know, they don't want to be that crazy person, you know, but all they want is just to, I hear you, you know, you felt it, you experienced. I cannot discount people's experiences. Right. You know, if they say it happens to them, I believe them. Only because, and my biggest thing is because been there, done that.
Yeah.
You know, but so that's pretty much it. Okay. Well, my voice is really starting to go. I'm really tired. I got to get up early. And like I said, we will do this again. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Sure. Could I just ask one thing before we go? And you may have been brought up before or anything. is it possible that my mind won't let this go right now?
Ahead.
Is it possible that your mother also saw and felt a lot of what you did, and she was so afraid of it, and with the religion and everything,
Well,
that when you came up with the same thing, she thought she could beat it out of you?
Right. That has been a theory. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
That's nothing. And to be honest, I never thought about any of that because nobody else ever, experienced any of the stuff that I was going through.
Right.
But many people have asked me that exact same question. And
I'm sorry then. Okay.
No, it's a head scratcher for me because if she was, it would make absolute perfect sense to me. But, and if she was obviously afraid of it, like you said. So, and maybe the reason why she did it to me, what she did to me, because she can't control what happened to her, but she can control it that happened to me.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're probably onto something there. I mean, you're not
you
the
never
only
know.
person. You never know.
Yep.
And you would think I'd be able to know. I don't.
You can't always know about your life because you're too busy living it.
That's right. And it's weird. It's just like a doctor can't fix themselves.
Right. Exactly.
An eye doctor can't, an optometrist, ophthalmologist can't do their own eye surgery. You know, sometimes you got to go to somebody else.
Yep. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Harvey, so much for being on with us.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the, like I said, for the opportunity. It was really fun.
You bet. And I'll post links to the recordings as they become available. And we will definitely have you back on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Everybody, have a great evening. And we'll talk to you next time. I'll take us out with So Quiet by Cobra Ramon. Okay. All righty. We're muted and song's playing. And
all right.
Thank you.
Really
Thank
fun.
you. Yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
All righty.
All right. We'll see you.
Okie doke.
Will this be this will be archived, right?
Yes, it will.
Okay, perfect.
And like I said, as I get the links, I will post them, and I can put them in our little in our message
sure,
box.
That's great. That's great.
Okey-dokey.
Absolutely. All
okay.
right.
All right.
All right.
All right,
Everybody
ladies. Have a nice evening. Okay.
Okay. You too.
All right.
All right.
Good night. Bye.
Night.
Took your car to the river, it was midnight. Moon so bright that we didn't need the headlights. I got out, left my clothing on the hood, you were so still. Couldn't see